Welcome back, YouTube. It's Rahul, and today we're going to be going over something more fun. Again, there's a lot of things that happened over the past weekend. We just saw on Monday's video the Japanese National Championships or the Japanese Championship Series, decks to top decks. But the decks don't just tell the story of the event. So I wanted to cover the whole event, but Pokemon Unite is coming out. I'm a little bit short on time. So for today's video, we're going to be looking over the finals match that happened between two players. One was Welder Mewtwo, the other was Shadow Rider Calyrex with Alchemy. We know the inevitable winner was the Shadow Rider deck, so that is kind of a spoiler. If you cared enough about the results, the deck lists are going to be in the description below, as well as on Monday's video if you want to go grab that from hohonews.net. But we're going to go over today's video and just kind of analyze the games, kind of like talk about some of the plays that were made and kind of the lines that the players could take. I'm going to be looking at it from the lens of a closed deck list because I think that's a little bit more impressive when you're looking at it from that angle. I also don't remember the list off the top of my head, and I don't really want to pull them up, so we're going to keep going with the closed deck list mentality. If you guys are enjoying the content, obviously like, subscribe. I am really appreciating all the support we're getting. I'm at 2,700 subscribers. It's a huge milestone for me. Let's try to get to 3K if we can sooner than later. If we can get to, I don't know, a pretty cool number before live events come back, I'll try to set up some collaborations with some of your favorite other YouTubers, Azul, Tricky Jim, maybe Chip, Trainer Chip. Like, I'll try to reach out to some of these people. We'll see what we can do. I am doing content as much as I can and balancing a full-time job and everything else too. So I really do appreciate all the support, and you guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Without that further ado, let's jump into the game. Now, I'm going to mute the audio from the casters so I can kind of do my own talking, and I will pause the game as we go to kind of explain some things as I feel necessary. So let's kind of go through this together. Yeah, that's probably the best way to say it. So we're in the finals. I believe until top cut it was best of one, or until top 32 or something like that. But then after a certain point, it became best of three matches, which I mean, we're more accustomed to for best of three matches across the board. So we have a Mewtwo Wilder deck on the left and a Shadow Rider on the right. If I didn't know what my opponent was playing, at the final stage, you should be knowing what your opponents are playing with a good amount of information about their list as well, because either you have friends that have already played them, there's enough information on the internet, or they've been streamed at least once or twice at this point. And if you're not being streamed simultaneously, you have enough time to catch the match and kind of figure out what's going on. So the information game is pretty important when a closed deck list match comes through. The Shadow Rider player is obviously in a great advantage because Mewtwo is obviously weak to Psychic. So no matter what you set up, you're going to have a lot of trouble one-shotting, and the Shadow Rider deck can kind of get the ball rolling a little bit quicker, and you need very few energy to start one-shotting, and Shadow Rider Calyrex is a tank. It's a tank in this matchup specifically because there's no dark types. There's the cheeky Mawile tech that I think like really shines in a best of one format that can take you into top cut just because of how strong it is when you start like thinking about the mid to end game and like the little cheese factor that comes through. Shadow Rider is having an insane turn one with an Alchemy on the board, triple baby Shadow Rider, as well as a Calm in hand. We already see it. He has an Evo Incense as well in hand and a Quick Ball. So his turn two is going to be absolutely bonkers. He can do whatever he wants pretty much here. He can grab a Alchemy VMAX, get Adornment up and running. He can get double Shadow Rider up and running as well. He pretty much has an attack almost virtually guaranteed. I presume decks like this do play 1-2 Crobat, probably Dedenne as well in the format. So this is probably the most ideal turn one you could ask for as a Shadow Rider player. Now, as Welder Mewtwo, I don't really know what your ideal turn one could be. Vileplume's a pretty insane attack to start, if you can get that off. There's a Welder, 2 Fire Energies in hand already, and a Vileplume. We see an Air Balloon as well, so you have the retreat option. No, that's an Ordinary Rod, so I'm trolling. So I think the rest of the hand is pretty dead. So he's going to go ahead and Welder 1, draw 3. I think the rest of the hand was not doing him any favors. There's probably a boss in there. Without that Welder top deck either, his hand would have been super dry. This is kind of the curse of playing Welder Mewtwo across the board, because, well, Welder Mewtwo, since its championship win in 2019, the World Championships, it's been more of a high roll deck, and well, I've been a proponent of loving the deck. Like, it's one of my favorite decks of all time, but you do have sometimes hands like this where you can't really play the game. So there's a pretty good chance that, oh, Big Eater. Wow, okay. Kind of trying to cheese his opponent out, see what's in the hand, if you can potentially get rid of any supporters. There are no supporters in there, but looking at that hand, a Alchemy VMAX. Oh, a top deck of a Marnie too. But I think you don't even need to do that. You think you just go ahead and Quick Ball, get the double Evo Incense up and running. You grab Alchemy VMAX here, and you grab Shadow Rider VMAX here as well. And then if you can get the triple attachment here, you pretty much get the one shot. Well, I guess you do need. I think Mawile does have resistance, so you need 4 energy onto the board for the one shot here. But you could also look for probably Gengar Mimikyu as well if you want to try to go for that route, or you could even try to start going with Trevnar GX as well. I believe the list on the right did not play any copies of Mewtwo itself, so it doesn't have that one-shot return factor, but having other Psychic Attacker tag teams is just as important. We do get the Crobat, put it into the hand. He does, I think, pitch the Evo Incense? No, he has Calm, I think, in hand. Did he Quick Ball away the Evo Incense? I think that might be incorrect if he did do that. I kind of missed that by a second. But I probably would have just gone ahead and gone down to a 0-card hand, pitching the Marnie as well, trying to get one more card, because you do see Blood in the Water this turn, because it's a very good chance you can actually get the Donk off based on how the deck functions. So you get the Shadow Rider up, second Shadow Rider up, and Crobat 4-5. Yeah, I think he did pitch the Evo Incense. I think I would have gone the other way around, grabbed something else with the other Evo Incense, maybe the third Shadow Rider VMAX, and kind of played the game that way. Fog Crystal comes through as well in the hand. Very, very ideal here for you. You can choose to be setting up another attacker. You can choose to start getting Alchemy up and running. I think, there's a bunch of options. I think you don't grab another actual basic Pokemon. I think you have to get the energy here. Just because, you probably need to save space for Dedenne, honestly, all things considered, because you might actually go for the Donk. I think it's one of those situations where there's like a lot of weakness on the line, so I would actually just like push for the Donk, because there's nothing wrong with going for it. There's no way you can actually get punished in this situation. You're probably going to put the energies on Alchemy anyway. If you want to play it a little bit safer, you can put it on Shadow Rider. But I think you go ahead and just put the energies on Alchemy anyway. Or split the energies for the time being. Just because, why not? Right? You have now apparently 3 Shadow Rider VMAXs in play. This is probably the most ideal turn 2 scenario for any Shadow Rider VMAX deck. If you have a hand like this and a board like this on turn 2, no matter what you're up against, this is I need you to demand an answer. Unless you're up against a straight dark type deck. This is a very much so a checkmatey position already off the board, which is really scary to think about if you're any sort of a player, which is why I think Shadow Rider Calyrex is going to be one of the dominant cards leading into the upcoming format. There we go. 2 energies onto the Alchemy, or energy onto the Alchemy. Another energy draws into the hand. We're going to go ahead and probably use the ability again. Underworld Door. Get another card and 2 energies. Fog Crystal comes through. Another way to thin real quick. He does play copies of Training Court, so putting energy into the discard seems absolutely reasonable. He does have Research in hand, I think I just saw on the top of the hand. So we're going to go ahead and probably grab ourselves a card to thin. Marshadow is probably the most likely card to grab and just pitch, or just Trevnar is fine to pitch too. It's just a card that you don't really want onto the board, I think, at this point. But I don't think you can bench it because you want to be able to save space for Dedenne, because I think this is a very, I keep repeating it, but I think this is a very donkable board. I think this is one of those games that should end in 1 to 2 turns. You can go Alchemy VMAX. I think there's another Shadow Rider in his hand. Yep. And then you can go ahead and accelerate the energy onto another Shadow Rider here on the bench. Yep. Underworld Door. 2 more cards. You have all your energies. All you're missing is now a switching card. So you can go ahead and attach to the bench Shadow Rider Calyrex or Crobat. It actually doesn't matter where you attach now. Probably at active is fine too. Kind of split the energies, and then we can go look for a research play. All we're looking for is a switching card. If he hits the switching card, the game does end on the spot. You have Quick Ball, you have Dedenne, you probably play a couple of Air Balloons. I don't remember the list off the top of my head. I think there was 3 switch, 2 Air Balloon. So there's a switch, and that is literally game 1 off the bat. Think about how crazy this is. Against any deck, the fact that you're barreling down 4 energies on a beefy attacker, and they're just wiping the board. That's just absolutely crazy to me that it could happen on turn 2. If this was an Alchemy, you could be very much so a card like Shadow or Trevnar or something also stripping your hand. But think about the post-rotation format when the game's going to be a little bit slower and the game's going to be ordained entirely by the V Pokemon. So being able to get that massive turn 1, turn 2 swing is crazy to me. And then also if your Alchemy doesn't get knocked out, you just refill your entire board with Adornment. And now you have cards like Training Court to recycle stuff. You have Ordinary Rod, Energy Recycler. It's absolutely crazy to me that Shadow Rider is one of these very strong decks. Alchemy also gives you this weird advantage into dark types as well, because they can't one-shot your Alchemy necessarily. Eternatus specifically can't do it. So you can kind of play around that aspect and look for more bench, more damage, and potentially a one-shot onto Eternatus, and kind of trying to stay alive in that regard. Zapdos probably makes its way into your list in the post-rotation format. Very easily, very splashable. But for the time being, looks like both players, I don't know, Eternatus did not seem to have a big showing across the board, which does not surprise me necessarily, because I think Eternatus does suffer a lot from Rapid Strike Urshifu getting tools into Inteleon. And I don't know, it's not the most consistent of decks, so you kind of like are hoping that your theme deck, your dark theme deck sets up. And if your dark theme deck doesn't set up well, you lose. And a lot of decks are playing Path to the Peak. There's so many answers in this current standard format, and there's going to be a lot more answers in the post-rotation format. So Turnus does seem like, even though it's going to be a deck, it's going to be one of the weaker decks because there's going to be a lot of fighting decks. There's going to be a lot of other decks that are going to be decent, but we're going to see how things shape up. Gengar VMAX is another card that could potentially do a lot of damage into Shadow Rider. So, and Duraludon as well. We saw a couple of Duraludons. I think one made top 32, but besides that, we didn't see much. I think there was one Rayquaza that made top, like right outside of top 64 bubble, but two cards that didn't really see a splash in this event. Surprising actually, because Rayquaza is one of the newer cards that I expected to do a lot, like really well, but I guess maybe couldn't keep up with the speed of this current standard format. But given post rotation, you get the Flaffy guy, you do your thing. Yeah, so game 2 underway. If you are the Mewtwo player, you almost certainly do want to go first, because yes, you're trying to look for a supporter turn 1 and you want a welder, but it seems like absolutely ridiculous to give a stage 1 setup deck that pretty much uses its setup as its draw engine to go first. You just never want to let it do that. Yeah, you have the potential of getting whatever little guy's first attack is, little Shadow Rider's first attack is, but that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because, I mean, I think the thing you're most scared about is Horror House GX on turn 1 into a potential Poltergeist or potential setup onto the board, because that's also a gigantic swing turn, and you're weak. Like, you're weak and you need to be weldering every turn. Now, the Mewtwo deck, as we can clearly see here as well, oh my god, those prizes are so unfortunate, has Umbreon VMAX to kind of answer the typing, because you hit for 160, that does one shot, you have an answer into it, but you just prized 2 Umbreon VMAX. I don't remember if this guy played 2 or 3, but that's really, really unfortunate for a game 2 scenario. Your one card that is also your gust effect, as well as like your comeback mechanic into the game. Like I think 2 Umbreon VMAX or even 1 Umbreon VMAX is really hard to answer. Turn 1 Dedenne comes through. That's a lot of energy hitting the discard. Maybe I would have attached to Zapdos. I think you're looking for the Umbreon, right? Like, I think you have to be looking for Umbreon turn 1 here. I think you can't even afford to put down Mewtwo in this matchup, like realistically speaking. This hand is awful. Oh my god. So you could look for a Mawile Cheese right here, slam it maybe. Potentially hope for the best off of your opponent's hand. Maybe like hope they have a dead hand, but as we've seen, Shadow Rider Calyrex is a very consistent 4/4/4 engine. Your opponent's hand isn't the best, obviously, but they do have a Horror House GX if they want it, if they have it in deck with a Quick Ball. But I think you just opt to set up another Shadow Rider and probably use. You probably just go ahead and use Horror House here. No, I think you might just use little guy's attack. So he's counting his Aurora energies that are in the deck. I see 2 in there so far. 1 was in the discard already. Looking at the attackers, there's 1 Umbreon. I think he's made the quick realization that his entire remaining Umbreon line is prized, which is really unfortunate because I feel like there's only a 2/2 line in here. And I mean, well, I think you need the Umbreon to even get the ball rolling. Like, it's not one of those situations where it's like I can use Mewtwo early, hope that it sticks, and kind of go from there. Because your Mewtwo is never going to stick in this matchup. Every single attacker in the Shadow Rider VMAX's deck is built to just take out Mewtwo. So Mewtwo is not going to get you anywhere realistically. You now have an energy on a Mawile. Your majority of your Fire energy are now in your hand. So even if you top pick a Dedenne or something like that, you're in a really bad situation. So I don't even know if the Hearth was like really worth playing. Maybe worth playing just look in the deck, but I think you're not in a good spot. It's a very, very bad spot. Yeah, Fog Crystal off the top. That's insanely good top deck. You cannot ask for anything better, I think, in my opinion. Maybe a supporter would have been the only thing that was better, but you have a Quick Ball in hand to keep digging, so now you can just grab literally whatever you want. Probably Shadow Rider attached to the bench Shadow Rider. Probably just set yourself up, or you can just attach to the active so you can set up for an attack. You're good to go. Like, at this point, like, I don't see a way that you are in a terrible spot. Like, what can the Mewtwo player do? I mean, you don't have complete knowledge that their Umbreons are prized, but you haven't seen an Umbreon turn 1 which is a really good sign, because if Umbreon hits the board turn 1, you attach to Umbreon, there's probably a good sign that that Umbreon is going to become a threat turn 2 immediately, take 2 prizes, like straight up. I think it's just going to take 2 prizes. Like, no matter how you slice it, that Umbreon's going to take 2 prizes immediately, and then it's probably going to take another 2 more or 3 more before it goes down, and then if a second Umbreon gets set up, that's the last remaining prizes. So this Mewtwo deck does have a really good answer to it the more I think about it, but, well, there is no Umbreon for our friend, our Mewtwo friend, right now. So we're going to go ahead and see a Crobat coming down here. He kept the switch in hand, I believe, and discarded the Evo Intense with a Quick Ball, which, again, I think is fine, probably, because now you can set up for, you can switch into the other Shadow Rider for next turn. You're probably going to attach to the bench if you're going to make this play. I don't know, I think attaching Active is fine, too. You probably do attach before you Crobat, though. Attaching Active means that you know that he can't use Aurora Energy, your opponent at least, so you can set up a position where the only attacker they can really use is Mewtwo. So just from going to burn the switch, I guess. Interesting line of play. And then a Crobat. Okay. So I think you don't really want to use any supporters this turn, so maybe a boss could have also been warranted onto Dedenne, just to kind of stall for time. This hand is not great either, but you have a Shadow Rider VMAX in hand. And you have a Energy. So you're already going to be drawing cards with Underworld Door no matter what happens. You have Air Balloon and you have Switch as well. So you can kind of make your play into next turn. So he's going to pop the Stadium off the bat here. No Hearth. And 10 damage comes down. You know you're protected from Umbreon's attack now. You can't get Welder knocked out here. Zapdos can't do anything either. Yeah, so that's a pretty strong response out of Shadow Rider here. And our friend here has a pretty decent hand. But what can the Mewtwo player do here? We have Tool Jammer, which could buy him some time, actually, if he can get that down right now, actually. But I think the rest of his hand is pretty bad. So I don't know what he can do. And then just a strong pass. That is not a good feeling in any world. So we're going to hit a Shadow Rider. We're going to go see a Underworld Door. I mean, honestly, at this point, I like his line of play and his thought process, where he's just going to use Underworld Doors to keep setting up cards and kind of take his time with the first attack of Shadow Rider, because now you can set up an unlosable board position, because the Mewtwo deck probably doesn't play like more than one research or more than one copy of research, but probably plays multiple Dennes. So if you can kind of force him to burn resources for no reason really, you're going to be in a really good spot. So Alchemy comes down. The judge is just asking our player here to kind of spread out his options to kind of make it look better. Probably keep loading up Shadow Rider. There's no reason not to, I think. I think Shadow Rider is probably going to be your first attacker here. You don't see an Umbreon in the active spot whatsoever. Research comes through. And we're going to see 7 new cards. Ideally, we're just looking for another VMAX. Probably no, you don't even VMAX the active. You probably just want to find another V, put it on the bench. And just set up like your board. Like there's no reason to even. I literally don't think you even VMAX the active. I mean, you could and just swing in this turn, which wouldn't be bad if you just swing in this turn. Actually, you could swing this turn. Fog Crystal, getting another V. I think if you keep doing the 10 damage here, you're not doing damage right now. Sorry, but if you like lock your opponent into a position where they can't put down those special Aurora energies, there's a good chance that either holding an Aurora energy, or you can force them to discard one where they don't want to in a situation. So, especially with a deck like Mewtwo that relies on Welders and Dedenne specifically. So, you could probably force them one more turn to kind of into a bad situation, because you're not, like I said, you're not going to, that Mawile will never attack. The only thing now we're like realistically scared of is Reshizard. But even then, like, Reshizard's GX only does 200 here. So our Welder Mewtwo player is just really in a bad spot. Exploring his options. What can they do in a situation like this? Cherish Ball comes down. Like, again, we're going to see a Dedenne more than likely here to kind of get the game accelerating. But at this point, we're going to hit another couple of energy into the discard, which is not good. We can't afford to see more fire hit the discard, because if you look closely into his deck, there's like 2 fire, maybe 1 fire energy left. Like, you can't afford to discard any more fire, my friend. There's a Crobat. He's thinking he's going to grab the Mewtwo. He's going to just boldly grab the Mewtwo, say that I have no other line here. I need to start setting up Mewtwo. No, he's calming back to Mewtwo. I'm actually trolling. He has realized, as well as I did, that you can't put down a Mewtwo in this matchup. It's just so unfortunate that your Umbreons are prized. Like, I think had he had Umbreon, I mean, his hand is completely garbage, but had he had Umbreon a couple turns ago, maybe he could have, like, set up a really strong board presence. I have to imagine the Mewtwo player has made his way through multiple Shadow Rider VMAXs to get to this point, so his deck is dealing with it. It has dealt with it. He has answers to it in the form of Umbreon. But this game is a very unfortunate display of what can happen when you get to the finals. And, well, one player is getting everything they need and the other is not. So it's a hard world out here. We see 2 Switch are already in the discard, I believe. Or there's a Switch. Yeah, 2 Switch should be in the discard, I think, already. So we're going to get the Tool Jammer into play. We're going to see a Crobat coming down. This could prevent the Shadow Rider from, or the Mawile from going down this turn specifically. But long term, it's not going to be enough, I think. I do see 2 Comms and Cherish Ball, I think, is that card? Yeah, Cherish Ball on the edge. 2 Comms in hand and a Boss, as well as 2 Fire Energy in hand. So the hand isn't any better, realistically speaking. You kind of have to grab an attacker here, I think, and start attaching to it. Or you could Dedenne again, but I guess, like I said, if you Dedenne here, the game is probably all but lost. So we don't want to do that if we are our friend on the left. Resource-wise, we are in a really tough spot. Umbreon-wise, we're in a really tough spot. So let's think about the positives. How can you come back into this game? Well, the answer is you probably pack it up and go home. I mean, you're in the finals, though, so you can't really concede because this is your opportunity to become the Japanese champion, like the national champion, basically. A Boss comes down to kind of stall for time. But I think if your opponent had a Switch anyway, they were going to do it. This position just gives them a chance to use Adornment if they can do that. I mean, if I'm just the Shadow Rider player, I would just Adornment and, like, chill, like if I had the option to here. So there's another Psychic Energy coming down, another VMAX. Now you just go into the VMAX. Now it's just, we're done. We're done shenaniganing around. There's another Underworld Door ability. Another Alchemy comes into play. We're just looking for the VMAX here. Like, that's it. Another Shadow Rider comes down. Probably a second Underworld Door here. Yep. There's the Underworld Door. There's a Quick Ball. That doesn't change things too much. Balloon, but there's a Tool Jammer in play, so we can't really do anything here. You have to attach active, for sure, with the energy. And you're probably out of Switch cards. Or Switch specifically, because I believe there was 2 Switch, 3 Balloon, or 3 Switch, 2 Balloon, and 2 Switch already in the discard. For some reason, I really remember switching cards more than anything else, which, like, helps me play alternative win conditions, which is something you guys should remember when looking at lists. Switching cards and looking at alternative win conditions is definitely a way that people win regional championships across the board, so you have to be very careful about looking into that and, like, understanding the stipulations to that. You attach active every time, I think. There's no reason not to. I think you can just thin your deck, Dedenne here, look for potential switch, look for the... Trevnor's fine too, honestly. Just Trevnor is a fine card to just slam down here and then just set up your board. Like, what are you in threat of? Like, if your Alchemy goes down, who cares? Like, they're either burning Flare Strike or they're burning their GX attack here. And if that happens, you just come back up and you can possibly one-shot them because, well, you have a lot of energy on board and you can probably get to that point pretty easily at this point. Now you're hitting for, there's 5 energy on the board. A potential 6 is about to hit the board. So you're hitting for 190 already. And next turn, that doesn't mean knockout. So, we're just checking the discard real quick, seeing what's in there. He's good. Probably just, like I said, just probably slam the energy on the active, call it a day. Balloon the bench. Sounds good to me. We're eyeing up the Dedenne. You have the training court also. You don't have to make the decision now. So you can put the training court down, Dedenne here, and then make the decision after you see your hand, which I think is also completely fine. Right? Like, that's a completely fine play. You get a chance to see 6 fresh new cards, a potential supporter as well, after the fact. So you get to see a bunch of new cards. No, you don't need to attach here. I think attaching here is a mistake. I think you get, because you have the training court, you are in an okay position to just not. But this is also fine. Research comes down. We get to see more cards. He does get it. If he finds a VMAX here, he will be rewarded for his play. Both either Alchemy or Shadow Rider VMAX, you are rewarded for your play at that point because you can Adornment or you can draw some more cards using Shadow Rider VMAX, getting the 1 energy back as well. But in this situation here, we do get the training court. Energy comes back in hand. No other energy in the discard. Pretty clean game so far. he did hit the VMAX, so he's absolutely vibing here. You can just go to the VMAX Adornment. He's got a bunch of energies onto the board. And then now you're basically one-shotting everything because Reshizard can't even deal with Alchemy VMAX. So Reshizard's going to come up, potentially hit it for 200, potentially hit it for 230. That's your... What you have to think of worst case scenario every situation. Pass? Okay, so we're not going to Adornment. Very interesting line of play. I think I would have just personally Adornmented because, like, why not? Why didn't he Adornment? That was boss last turn. So definitely you could Adornment, get your board set up with energy. 1, 2, 3, 4 more energy on the board. And then you're pretty much in a completely optimized position. If anything gets knocked out, you have Training Court to bring energy back. You have Ordinary Rod to shuffle things back into the deck. Your deck can pretty much only become energy and Mons, looking for bosses and stuff like that to end of the game. Maybe he's thinking that if I go VMAX now and take a hit, it's really bad. And the overall trade process, but there's no Umbreons on the board at the current moment. So you could just take the knockout into the Rescue Shard. If Umbreon comes up and pulls up like a Shadow Rider, for example, then you have Alchemy again still on your board that has not been knocked out with a bunch of energy still there. So I think that might have been a little bit of a mistake or a misplay. But you're in such an advantageous board state that I guess it doesn't really matter. Aurora Energy comes down, getting rid of the Calm, and we're gonna probably see a Big Eater GX just to kind of cheese. I wouldn't even Big Eater at this point. I think I just actually attack. I guess also you just get knocked out by Mawile. No, wait. Mawile does 10, 30, 60, 90, 120, 130 into that guy. So you don't even... The VMAX doesn't get knocked out. But now you have no longer an Alchemy on the board, and your other Alchemy is in the discard. So you do need to find a Ordinary Rod to put those back into the deck to have a potential one-shot on any Umbreon that comes into play. So you are trying to figure out if an Umbreon will come into play. And I think you need to have an Alchemy on the board when that situation can occur. But at the current moment, you don't have an answer to it, which is a little bit unfortunate. But we know that Umbreon wasn't even at the bottom 2 prize cards for our friend, I think. So he has no Umbreon VMAX coming into play anytime soon, I believe. You get to pretty much draw as many cards as you want here. You have 3 energy to attach with Underworld Door, as well as you have Training Courts. So we will get to pretty much see infinite energy really hitting the board. Fog Crystal, there's the 3rd copy of the Switch, so it does look like there were 3 Switch to Air Balloon. There's another Underworld Door, drawing 2 more cards. 3rd Underworld Door. I think you hold the boss here on the off chance that you Training Court back the energy for sure, 100%. I think you hold the boss here on the off chance that he benches a Mewtwo, your opponent benches a Mewtwo or an Umbreon, because if this upcoming turn they bench an Umbreon, then you have pretty much 2 turn or like 3 turn lethal basically on everything here. So you take the knockout on the active here. You're big chilling. You have boss in hand. You are... I mean, look at that hand. That hand is like a 15 card hand. That's actually nuts. Like, you have pretty much most of your deck in your hand. You take the knockout here for sure. You have 9 energy in play, hitting for 280 damage, minus 20. Resistance comes through. You take your 2 prize cards. Yeah, both Umbreon VMAX are still in the prize cards. And the Shadow Rider player gets 2 more energy. So this is a really, really, really bad spot. If you're the Mewtwo player, you're now down 2 Aurora energy. You cannot really stall the game any further. That Mawile knockout was really good position-wise because you could set up a board that could potentially do something. Because if you rip the Umbreon VMAX out of the prizes there, you could drop 2 Umbreons in the same turn and potentially set up like a Stamp play or a Marnie play. I don't even know if the deck plays Stamp. I forgot the list already. But you could set up a Stamp play into a knockout on one of the Shadow Riders. And wipe a lot of energy off the board, making it so getting one shot is not a possibility. And hopefully your opponent's exhausted enough energy at that point. A Research and 3 energy hit the discard. That is not what you want to see if you are the Water Mewtwo player. You have Training Court, I understand, but you are down a lot of energy. I think there's literally like maybe 1 fire left in the deck. So can we see the Water Mewtwo hands, please? I don't know why I'm speaking like I can talk to production. I can't. So there's a Quick Ball finally. There's a Welder in hand too. Eldegoss was an unfortunate draw. We're going to grab probably the Umbreon here. And then you have to, right? There's no other play I think you can make. Mewtwo's going to come through. You could go for a Horror House here. That'd be kind of cheeky. No, you can't. You can't even go for a horror house. You need 2 energy. I guess allergic explosion is what they're saying. The GX, Vileplume's GX is probably not your best pet, actually. If you had a stamp to pair with it, maybe? I don't know. This is hard. This is rough to watch. He's going to Ordinary Rod these back into the deck. I don't think I saw an Aurora Energy in the hand, but I did see the Welder. So you can't even Welder this turn, actually, because of you Sycamored. If there's an Aurora Energy in the hand, you can go ahead and do the Allergic Explosion GX attack, and that's probably your best bet to try to stay in the game. That's pretty much your best bet to stay in the game. Give yourself some time. There was the Aurora Energy. Mewtwo comes down. Aurora comes down. Your opponent is down 2 switch, 2 balloons, so there's a pretty good chance they don't have the 3rd switch, potentially a 4th switch. Doesn't look like many decks do play it. He discarded the Marshadow, keeping the Training Court in place. Smart, because you're down on energy, so it doesn't matter if your opponent gets any more energy. They're already pretty much loaded on the board. You just need to miss the switching card this turn. We're going to go ahead and use Vileplume's GX attack, hoping that the 3rd or 4th potential switch is prized. But for us, because we have omnipotent view of the situation, we know that the switch is in the hand. And at that point, I think that pretty much means that his lights out. Tails, so the Pokemon does stay burned. But look at that hand size. Like, switch comes through, and I think at that point, like, what hope do you have left in this matchup? Like, what can you really do? You're facing down a board of this many energy. You don't even Umbreon down this turn. Your opponent is going to take 3 prizes this turn, and all they're going to be looking for next turn is the boss's orders to pretty much clean out the entire game. Like, what can you do? Trevenor comes down too, so your hand is also going to get stripped of cards. This is like legitimately painful to watch. Like, as a player, like if I'm the one on the other side of the table, it's going to be rough. But it looks like the Shadow Rider player is down to like 2 cards in deck. So if I'm him now, I'm just going to start thinning a little bit, and then go ahead and you probably go ahead and Ordinary Rod back the Alchemies. Alchemy Dedenne, probably your 2 cards. Marshadow is fine. That's totally okay. I was thinking Alchemy, so you have a potential out if the Umbreon hits the board, but I think you have way too many energy on the board to even worry about like a situation where like you're not one-shotting something. Marshadow comes through. He's going to bump the Training Card, I think. Just make it so the Welder player can't use it at all. 3 cards in the deck. Marshadow bump the Stadium. You probably just want to like thin out some of those like calms and stuff like that, like fail the calm, keep the crystal. That's a draw card. Quick ball with something that's dead in your hand. Quick ball away a calm, like calm the Alchemy VMAX. Put it back on top of your deck. Put it back in your hand. I don't think you get rid of the quick ball. The quick ball is a draw card actually. Now that I think about it, because Dedenne to close out the game. So you probably just go ahead and burn another calm. Do it all over again. Put it back into your hand. Yep, very good thinning. You keep the Fog Crystal, you keep the boss, you keep everything else in that hand. The Alchemy VMAX is a dead card, obviously speaking, but the Quick Ball is a Dedenne now that the Dedenne is back in the deck. And the worst that could happen is getting stamped to 1 here. So hitting Quick Ball always means you see a second card, which means you always see Dedenne. So, yeah, and your opponent more than likely does not play Path to the Peak, or at this point you'd probably know if you would. And 150 comes down. The Mewtwo does get knocked out due to weakness. And our Welder Mewtwo player loses Welder and a Fire Energy, going down to a 1-card hand. Nothing on the board. Shadow Rider has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 energy on their side of the field. What can you really do? Any Pokemon in the Pokemon trading card game will get one-shot by the Shadow Rider VMAX at this point. So you pretty much have to pray, I guess. I don't know. 3 Aurora Energy are down as well. No Umbreon in sight. Your win condition. There is no win condition right now. What can you even do? If you go into the Reshizard, your opponent can just retreat and knock you out. You know that they probably have a second copy of Training Court. Was that Dedenne there last turn, or did he top deck that? I think he top decked that. So you have a chance now. Dedenne comes through. I mean, when I say chance, I mean like very loosely. I say you have a chance. There, I don't mean it in any like form. This is like one of those like, hey, we get to watch another 2 minutes of absolute pain, even though we know that, well, it's over. Like it's over. Like, what can you do in this situation? Like, what is your like ultimate end game here? Down to 2 fires in the entire deck as well. Um, this is rough. This is hard. Even if you get the Welder to the 230 here this turn, Reshizard cannot withstand the overall beatings of what will potentially come down. Like, you don't even get one knockout this turn. Um, so it's a really rough situation here, being the Welder Mewtwo player. But it is a championship finals and it's game 2. You're already done game 1. You can't really concede, but it's definitely one of those like mental blows. And if I was a player, like I'm not saying this like I don't mean to like drag it on or whatever, but if I'm the player in the situation, I'd definitely be like in a rough spot. Boss up the Crobat. Hope your opponent is out of energy. 12 are on the board. Most lists play 14. You could hope they only play 13, and the last prize card is a energy. That is a decent win condition option here, just to kind of hope. And then but we know that there is the last energy card. There's retreat. There's a knockout, and that is the game. So our player on the right becomes the Japanese national champion. In 2 games that were very convincing, but I think both games were like a shoddy display of how Welder Mewtwo works. I think given the fact that there's Mawile to answer Alchemy VMAX, given the fact that there's Umbreon VMAX to answer Shadow to Calyrex VMAX, there was a lot of options and outs that the Mewtwo player had in his deck where he could play more of an Umbreon box as opposed to Mewtwo if the situation called for it. Unfortunately, the prize cards game 2 did not favor him, and game 1, we saw what Welder Mewtwo sometimes has to go through with a hand where it's pretty unplayable, even with 4 Cherish Ball, 4 Quick Ball, I presume, a couple of comms maybe. Like, it's just one of those situations that ends up happening to any player, and it just really sucks when that does happen. But that's my commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what I can improve in the comments below. I kind of did this very impromptu, no script, nothing. Just kind of spitballing, freeballing, enjoying myself with the commentary of the cast, trying to keep it as professional as possible. If you guys enjoyed commentary like this, please let me know in the comments below. I will try to do more content like this, going over old VOD reviews, old games. I might do it on Twitch. I might do it here. I do like doing something like that where you can kind of analyze both players' perspective, kind of see frame by frame what went wrong, what could have been played a little bit better, because when you have like omniscient knowledge, it's much easier to tell what the correct play could have been, but you can also think about what you would be in that player's shoes, and that's how you learn and grow as a player more than anything else, just watching and analyzing players that are making top performances at events and seeing like what you can take from that performance and improve your own performance, and kind of plays you would otherwise not see, plays that otherwise you might not make. Even though it might be like obvious to the viewer, sometimes as a player you have a very like niche way of handling a certain situation, so you might not think of it off the top of your head. But that all being said, sorry I'm rambling. This was fun. I had a lot of fun doing this. Thank you guys for all supporting me as always. You guys saw at the beginning of the video that I talked about how we are going to shoot for 3,000 subs by the end of August. Let's shoot for by the end of August if we can. But thank you guys so much for all the support. Love you, each and every one of you. And until Friday's video, peace out, guys. Thank you so much.